Is midweek edition of your breakfast show on Leadership Television inside Nigeria. Today is Wednesday, September 17, 2025, and of course, I'm your host, Winifred Ogbebo. Without much ado, on this first half of the program, we are looking at what the national newspapers are saying, including Nigeria's most influential leadership. And of course, we are taking a headline story today from, of course, what is expected to take place in Rivers State tomorrow, and that is the issue of emergency rule definitely going to elapse tomorrow, September 18, 2025. Of course, President Bola Tinubu is already in the country, obviously, to make pronouncement on that emergency rule to be or not to continue. Well, as we wait for President Bola Tinubu's pronouncement or statements, let's look at what the papers are saying this Wednesday, starting with Nigeria's most influential leadership. Leadership's leading story says 12 banks clear recapitalization hurdle ahead of March 31 deadline. 12 banks clear recapitalization hurdle ahead of March 31, 2026 deadline. The story continues on page 7 of Leadership. Tinubu back in Abuja after a 2-week vacation in France. That story runs on page 8 of Leadership. And besides, on the sideline of the paper, why we want Fubara to join us, APC. Of course, APC, the ruling All Progressive Party, Congress Party, is wooing Fubara, the embattled governor of Rivers State, into his fold. And the story is on page 8 of Leadership. So when it counters DSS suit seeks enforcement of fundamental rights. Of course, another paper has it that, just like Leadership said, other papers have it that he has also countersued DSS seeking his enforcement of his fundamental human rights. Flood hits 13 communities in Adamawa, and many Nigerian orphanages now havens for stolen children. Coming from the agency, many Nigerian orphanages now havens for stolen children agency. Troops arrest indigenous people of Biafra commander, rescue 11 victims. That story is on page 18 of Leadership. We have the picture of a fire outbreak at a high-rise building housing a branch of the United Bank for Africa, UBA, on Lagos Island yesterday. Report has it that some of the residents or people who were trapped in the building are receiving treatment in various hospitals. Moving towards the mindset of Leadership, Nigeria, 651 kidneys worth $41 billion sold in 5 years, says Professor of Medicine. The story is on page 23 of Leadership. 651 kidneys worth $41 billion sold in 5 years, says Professor of Medicine. And on the business boss, we have airline operators lament absence of insurance coverage for airports. Domestic airline operators have raised the alarm over the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria funds failure to ensure proper insurance coverage for airports nationwide. Speaking at the 5th Chinet Avi Cargo Conference at the 21st Akwaba African Travel Market in Lagos on Tuesday, the founder and CEO of Overland Airways, Edward Boyo, said non-insurance of the airports had a detrimental impact on domestic airline operations. Boyo urged the National Insurance Commission, NICOM, to engage with the relevant authorities to ensure that all airports in Nigeria are properly insured, lamenting that poor airport infrastructure had resulted in significant damage to aircraft, with airlines bearing the financial burden. As from the business story today on the business boss of Leadership cover, airline operators lament absence of insurance coverage for airports. That takes us to the stories about the masthead of Leadership. Of course, still a trendy story. Reactions to JT Hussaini's London property controversies. He says, I have not been indicted in any way. Reactions to JT Hussaini's London property controversy. I have not been indicted in any way. Uzekome. Lastly, on the cover of Leadership, despite zoning, our presidential ticket open to all coming from PDP. Of course, PDP had zoned its ticket, presidential ticket, to the southern region of the country. And that has continued to also generate controversy with PDP stalwarts like Olawepo Ashim insisting that he is coming out to contest that converted position. Moving to page 3 of the paper, we have our stand today is on as philanthropy becomes politics by Steve. as philanthropy becomes politics by stealth. In Nigeria's political culture, philanthropy has often worn a second face. A politician suddenly remembers the plight of widows and distributes sewing machines. Another sends truckloads of rice to villages he has ignored for years. Roads are patched overnight, scholarships mysteriously multiply, and boreholes spring up where campaign rallies are expected to be held. The line between charity and politics has been deliberately erased. We'll move towards the conclusion of the stand. It says when INEC raised the red flag, the political class were not deterred. In fact, it even gingers them to continue. The current Electoral Act is clear on timelines for campaigns, but silent on enforcement against philanthropic vote buying. As Professor Yakubu lamented, the Commission cannot prosecute shadows. It needs statutory teeth. Until the law is amended, politicians will continue exploiting this loophole with impunity. Notwithstanding, we feel it is our responsibility to make it clear. Nigerians must reject the idea that their dignity and political future can be exchanged for temporary gifts almost 2 years before the next elections year. True philanthropy is consistent, apolitical, and community-driven, not seasonal and branded. Citizens must learn to ask, where was this generosity before the election calendar loomed? The question on today's stand, as philanthropy becomes politics by stealth. From our stand, we are going to the back page where we have Wednesday column with Olufunke Barungwa. Today she's writing on Fire on the Mountain. Of course, kindergarten used to sing this poem, Fire on the Mountain, run, 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 run. And that's the topic for Wednesday's column today with Olufunke Barungwa, Fire on the Mountain with exclamation mark. And in quotes, it says, leaders must listen to the people, prioritize equity, build trust through integrity, bridge, devise, and deliver results. Quote from today's column, Fire on the Mountain. Let's visit Ghana Must Go before we leave the back page. News today on Ghana Must Go says, Abure plans Labour Party Democracy Institute. And Ghana Must Go asks, is Apapa aware? That is a faction of Labour Party headed by Apapa, Lamidi Apapa. Is Apapa aware? Abure, over to you to answer that. Is on that note we conclude review of Leadership newspaper this Wednesday. For more, don't forget to log in to the website of Leadership newspaper. We move ahead to the paper. We have our headline caption today, and that is Daily Sun. Of course, many people are waiting, poised to hear news coming from the president on the emergency rule that was declared in Rivers State 6 months ago, which terminates tomorrow. Daily Sun's headline story says, Rivers all set for Fubara's return. Rivers all set for Fubara's return. CSOs, NYCN, others march for peace, unity. Of course, the story continues on page 26 of the paper. We have to take some excerpts from that story. Rivers all set for Fubara's return. Continues on page 26 of Daily Sun. Let's take some excerpts. And I read. Members of civil society organizations, CSOs, National Youth Council of Nigeria, NYCN, religious groups, and creative industry yesterday staged a peaceful walk as the 6-month emergency rule in Rivers State draws to a close. Convener of the Peace March, the Rivers Peace Initiative, RPI, declared that the state has experienced relative peace within the period under review. The pronouncement was contained in a letter to the Rivers State Sole Administrator, Vice Admiral Ibok Ete Ibas, retired, during the joint peace walk in Port Harcourt. Reading the open letter shortly before handing it over to the Senior Special Advisor to the State Sole Administrator, Hector Igbikio Wibu, in Government House, leader of RPI, Obina Ebogidi, urged the State Administrator to consolidate on the gains made during the transition period, particularly in strengthening peace across the state. He pointed out that the peace walk was organized to raise awareness on the need to sustain harmony in Rivers State. Ebogide in the letter also reaffirmed the group's commitment to partner with the state's governor, Similaye Fubara, to further entrench peace and stability. These are excerpts from the leading story on today's Daily Sun newspaper. Rivers all set for Fubara's return. It's also the leading story on one of the papers we have on our lineup, and that is the Vanguard. Still on Daily Sun, economy CBN warns Nigerians, says country still faces economic risk despite cooling inflation. Airpeace creates 1,000 jobs for fresh graduates through graduate training program. Edo governor unveils education reforms as UBA hosts world leaders at UNGA 2025. UNGA is a United Nations General Assembly, which is taking place right now in New York, United States of America. Unveils roadmap to unlock Africa's potential. We move towards the masthead of Daily Sun this Wednesday. Nigerians won't accept insecurity as destiny. Obi wants. The candidate of the Labour Party in the 2023 presidential elections, Peter Obi, has condemned the worsening insecurity, saying Nigerians would not accept that as their fate. He described it as a dangerous normalization of tragedy that is threatening the nation's future. Obi, on verified X handle yesterday, was reacting to reports that 55 people were abducted in Zamfara State few days after news of a purported peace deal in neighboring Katsina State. Excerpts from one of the leading stories on Daily Sun, Nigerians would accept insecurity as destiny, Obi wants. Lastly, on the cover of Daily Sun newspaper, IPOB disowns named notorious pro-Biafra commander, Gentle the Yahoo. Of course, that story is also on the page of leadership that the army has Nigerian troops has arrested the commander of the indigenous people of Biafra. That brings to a close the review of front headline stories on Daily Sun this Wednesday. For more, log into the website of Daily Sun. We move ahead to the next paper we have on our lineup, and that is Vanguard. Vanguard still on Rivers. Hopes miss views as emergency ends tomorrow. Ibas asks residents to nurture peace already built. Edansi for unity. Fubara returning as a conquered man. CUPP. Governors may suffer, says Okorie. Abgas founding chairman. PDP warns Fubara against defection. Demands probe of interim rule. Tinubu returns from vacation. These are kickers to the leading story on today's Vanguard newspaper. Rivers hopes miss views as emergency ends tomorrow. And that story continues on page 5 of the paper. Shawolu says Lagos key to attaining Nigeria's global influence. This story is on page 10 of Vanguard. Food insecurity. Federal government unveils new agric investment incentives. Nigerian professors and gardeners 3-hour pay. SOAUVC Abimbola. We move to the masthead of Vanguard. Atop it, private depot deserted as Dangote refinery begins direct fuel supplies. That story is on page 19 of Vanguard. Private depots deserted as Dangote refinery begins direct fuel supplies. Experts disagree as presidency says inflation will drop to single digits. Bandit commander Ado Aliero kills traditional ruler in Safe, Zamfara. NIN SIM leakage reduces fraud, boosts national security. Tinubu. Lastly, on the cover of Vanguard, federal government drags Sowore, Facebook, X to court over criminal post against Tinubu. And that also concludes review of front headline stories on the Vanguard newspaper this Wednesday. For more, log into the website of Vanguard. We move ahead to the next paper we have on our lineup, and that is Nigerian Tribune. Nigerian Tribune's leading story today says how Buhari's government destroyed economy, coming from the ex-speaker of House of Representatives, Dogara. Says ex-president's administration's printing injection of 22.7 trillion naira destroyed naira value. These are kickers to the story, how Buhari's government destroyed economy. Incidentally, Dogara served as a Speaker of the House of Representatives under Buhari, President Muhammadu Buhari. Upsurge in Lassa fever cases as deaths hit 162 in August. NCDC. UBA Foundation flags up 225 2025 National Essay Competition. UBA Foundation flags off 2025 National Essay Competition. Petrol from Dangote Refinery arrives USA for first time, according to reports. And in Health News Today, which is a daily on the cover of Nigerian Tribune, cannabis use may quadruple risk of developing diabetes. Study. CPP urges policy mix to sustain inflation decline, boost growth. NIPOS intercepts cannabis concede in Lagos consignment from Thailand. And on top, the masthead of Nigerian Tribune, Okpebolo unveils transformative education reforms in Edo. Customs consults Finance Ministry on alternatives following suspension of 4% import levy. And that brings to a close the review of front headline stories on Nigerian Tribune this Wednesday. For more, log into the website of Nigerian Tribune. We head up to the last paper we have on our lineup this Wednesday, and that is The Guardian. The Guardian's leading story says insider threats, low confidence, hobble $14 billion aviation target. Still a report from the ongoing conference taking place today as reported by Leadership newspaper. Insider threats, low confidence, hobble $14 billion aviation target. We have illustration as usual beneath that leading story. It says the aviation sector contributes $2.5 billion to the GDP with a target of $14.1 billion, supporting over 216,700 direct and indirect jobs. In 2024, according to the NCAA, 996 instances of pilferage, discourtesy, and other incidents at airports nationwide. 142 incidents took place on international flights, while the remaining 854 were on domestic flights. In August 2025, the NDLEA arrested 5 suspects, including airport staff over drug trafficking at Kano Airport. NDLEA accused the suspects of planting drugs in the checked-in luggage of 3 Nigerian pilgrims who landed in a Saudi Arabian prison. In January 2020, officials of the Nigerian Customs Service arrested a ground handler when they intercepted $8.06 million, that is 292 billion naira equivalent, at the E-wing of the tarmac of the Lagos airport. In 2023, Airfield Lightnings AFL of runway 18 right of the Murtala Mohammed Airport, Lagos, were vandalized and stolen twice in May and June. These are illustrations to the leading story on The Guardian this Wednesday. Insider threats, low confidence, hobble $14 billion aviation target. The story continues on page 6 of The Guardian. Beside that leading story, Obi decries normalization of violence as Kwara youths make distress call. Tinubu returns as Fubara set for reinstatement. Labour Party seeks emergency rule probe. Federal government is insensitive to doctors' welfare. NMA, that is Nigerian Medical Association, rates your rates. Sowore files counter-suit as DSS use him, ex-Meta over anti-Tinubu post. International Day, Lagos warns against using ozone-depleting gases for refrigerators. Orders. That story is on page 7 of The Guardian. International Day, Lagos warns against using ozone-depleting gases for refrigerators. Orders. Crude output improves as Nigeria records first full pipeline availability in 20 years. The story is on page 28 of The Guardian. We move towards the masthead of The Guardian newspaper. PDP throws 2027 presidential ticket open to all regions. Food, transport, housing, others remain key inflation drivers. Article meets U.S. envoy in Abuja, flees tribalism in Nigeria. That brings to a close the review of front headline stories on The Guardian this Wednesday. For more, log into www.guardian.ng. It's on this note we bring to a close the first half of the program in newspaper review. Don't go away. Stay tuned because we have a special report coming in shortly in the second half of the program.
Leadership TV for God and country.
Welcome back. In case you're just joining in, the program is Inside Nigeria. This is the second half of the program, and my name is Winifred Weber. In what you term a developing story, earlier this year, the Nigerian's Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Senator Abubakar Kyari, says President Bola Tinubu's emergency measures on food security are working, insisting that food prices in the country have crashed. He said that President Bola Tinubu came at a time when there was huge structural default in terms of food security, and that is why he had to declare the clarion call an emergency on food security in July 2023. The minister explained that part of the intervention was to ramp up local production while importing to make up shortfalls, citing rice as an example. Earlier this week also, the special advisor to the president on economic affairs, Tukpe Fashwa, has also expressed confidence that Nigeria's inflation rate will soon drop to single digits, citing stabilizing food prices, a stronger naira, and ongoing reforms. Fashwa said that food prices are falling nationwide, with some farmers complaining that the government's policies are pushing prices down too sharply. Meanwhile, Leadership Television went to town and to do market survey and came up with this report in a developing story. Here's the report.
Before the price, before is different and now, enough difference. Before we are getting it 300, 400, but now it's 200 and now it's coming down.
Everything have to come down. Tinubu they try.
Waiting and make all this thing go up now, transportation.
And the last month and now, I don't know about rice, but I'm talking about beans, crayfish, obolo, ogusi and stockfish. They are coming down small.
In region good. It make everything like Garina, it don't come down, rice don't come down, beans don't come down. So everything then normal price now.
And because of the election now, so that after everything will still go up.
And some are still high, going up, like carrots, it's still going up.
Before this one now 250, but now 200 with the seller.
Kilo for me 6,000 before, now 7,000 naira.
Some things don't come down, some no come down.
I don't like for you see they increase every day.
Beans is 2,000, but before it's 3,000.
Beans, a mudu, you see it's 2,000, 1,815. It depends the area.
Even though the government don't regulate, the price of this food store because of, transportation and the rest. And I see make and be like say it's still there where it would be.
They try, but we were there inside market, normal. Not say, not to go up for this Nigeria, we go come down, pata.
Like Nigerian rice is 80,000. 90, white for is 130, 120. But at least now, don't come down small. A bag of rice 70, 65.
May they continue and make things come down, make money there, so that we go see money they pay our school fees. And make things there, may market they move as they move like before.
May government just try regulate prices. May people know, may private business they feel hike their prices. May people feel they access food. You understand, to take care of themselves and their families.
Yes, that was a report carried out by Leadership Television in view of the developing story that the food prices has crashed in the country. And that brings to a close today's Inside Nigeria. My name is Winifred Weber. Don't forget to join us for another fresh edition of the program. Same time, same station tomorrow. And meanwhile, don't also forget to stay on the station for news on the hour. Thanks for joining us.
Be part of our brand. Leadership for God and country.